for Autism Awareness Month. And I'm delighted today to have with us Katrina Roberts, who is our Director of Adult Program, and Stephanie Trusty, who is a Clinical Supervisor in that program. They will be presenting to you today on preparing individuals with autism for the workforce. Katrina Roberts is a board-certified behavior analyst and has years of experience in preparing young adults for employment in the community. Stephanie Trusty just completed her master's in applied behavior analysis and is working with us on developing work sites for our learners with autism and working closely with training staff. So I'll let them take it away. I think Katrina is going to be the first one to get started with you this morning. And I'm going to turn my camera off and let her get started.
Thank you, Bridget. We are excited to have you here with us today and to share this information. This is definitely a part of life that is very near and dear to mine and Stephanie's heart. So we're happy to share with you what we know. I wanted to first start off with this scene here. After this past year, this may seem very foreign to us after all that we've been through. No masks, they're less than 6 feet apart. They're most likely in a public place and indoors, which is all crazy to think about. But let's think back to a time where this was normal and what they might be discussing during this conversation. If they're meeting each other for the first time, after hearing a little bit about who they are, one of the first questions that they might ask is, what do you do? And if these people know each other and they're getting together, after they haven't seen each other in a little while, they might ask, how's work going? Because work is such an important part of our life. It says a lot about who we are and what we're passionate about. And for individuals with autism, we really want to afford them the same opportunity to be able to be asked that question and to be able to give a really good answer for it. The only problem that we have here is that we have some statistics that don't go in the favor of showing us that the right thing has been done that's been effective across the majority of the population of individuals with autism. In 2017, Rue and colleagues performed a study and found out that 14% of individuals with autism are employed within their communities. And in that same year, Autism Speaks also conducted some research and found that only 85% of individuals with autism, actually 85% of individuals with autism are unemployed. So they're both coming up with the same information, which is great, but it's unfortunate because the numbers are so high. Now, these data are from 2017, and we have yet to see how the pandemic impacted these numbers. But as we know, the majority of our lives are spent as adults. And working is a huge part of that adulthood. So the current data show that 50,000 people are transitioning, 50,000 young adults with autism are transitioning to adulthood each year. And while that's a good number, it's a big number, it's also good for us in that we have the ability to make impact with effective programming and creating the opportunities that these individuals need. Over the next 5 years, it's estimated that this number will grow even higher. So now is a good time to be looking at what we're doing and really developing the programs that we have for the individuals that we support. The good news is that there is a job for everybody, whether that be a very part-time job, 1 day a week, whether it's self-employment, full-time employment, there is something that everybody can do, but it's on us to help them figure out what that job is and to make sure that they succeed in that venture. As we know, finding a career is a quite involved process. For most of us, we're probably not doing what we said we were going to do when we were 5 years old. Fortunately for me, I said I would be a teacher. I guess I'm in the same realm of being a teacher, but my degree is not in teaching. So there are many avenues that I took to be able to get to this point in my life. There's a lot of inputs and been given from my family, from people around me, and the experiences that I've been a part of. And we know that for our learners, it's more complicated than just picking a career as well. There's a lot that goes into helping them determine what their job or career is going to be. and most likely a team of people that are helping usher them along the way. The ideal trajectory towards employment looks to something like this. As children, we are, thinking about our dream job. My 6-year-old tells me that she wants a different job every single day. She's dreaming about something different all the time, which is great for her. To me, that means she's exploring what her interests and her skills are. We're engaging in dramatic play, and taking your child to work day is a thing. Not every individual with autism may be able to participate in taking your child to work day for various reasons, but this is still an opportunity that could be provided to everybody. As teenagers and preteens, we're starting to be involved in volunteer work, internships, and for some of us, our first jobs. Working at the playground in the summer was my first job. Others found their first jobs as being a waitress. There's a lot of different avenues that you can take to explore opportunity. And then after we've had our educational and vocational experiences, we are looking at college and trade schools, military, and potentially employment right upon graduation. There's a lot of choice that goes into this and a lot of exploration that goes into this along the way. For an individual with autism, it might take a bit longer, thinking about, that somebody else is observing their interests and skills depending on their abilities, and, helping to develop their skills too in childhood. Looking in their teen years, they should also be volunteering and taking on internships, exploring interests and skills, and for some potentially paid work. Luckily now, in the past number of years, October has been designated as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And as part of that month, there is National Disability Mentoring Day. So individuals with disabilities are able to sign up to work with various employers for a day and see what they're doing and explore work through that area as well. And after they graduate, they also have the ability to decide if they want to go to college, or they're employed, taking part in a day program, or other social opportunities may be an option for them as well. So while it's slightly different, depending on the skills that they're developing and the experiences that they've had, it's just about the same for everybody. So back to this number of 14% of individuals with disabilities are employed within their communities. We have to look at what's been happening that this number is so low, and how we can then make changes to have more success in the future. In 2018, Coleman and Adams did a study in the state of Arizona with 172 individuals who either had autism themselves or it was a family member of an individual with autism, and asked them what they found the reasons were, or the barriers for finding and maintaining employment. These were some of the areas that they decided to share. To summarize these data, they had open-ended questions and answer categories that they show the challenges that respondents had to finding and keeping a job. While autism symptoms were the biggest response as the reasons why individuals weren't finding employment, and we know many of these symptoms, such as social and communication difficulties, could inhibit employment, we've also heard of employers desiring to hire individuals with autism because of characteristics of autism as well, such as their focus or attention to detail, their reliability. Those are all positive characteristics of individuals with autism that we can also look on the positive side. They mentioned job coaching and job training, and this is where we as professionals and family members come in, is that we all have a part in providing the skills to the learners that they would need in order to become successful in employment in the adult world. And once they enter the adult world as well, once they start working, our job isn't over. We need to continue to develop those skills just as we develop our skills on a daily basis as well. On the other side, job coaches also need to be well trained. So there's a few different avenues that we can go in to help address that issue. They also noted problems getting past interviews. We'll talk about some of these ways to help in an interview process later in our talk today. They mentioned lack of support from DD and VR agencies, and oftentimes these agencies are overwhelmed with high caseloads and budget restrictions, but the importance will really be on the agency that they connect you with. And lastly, mentioned the employer's lack of understanding of autism. And throughout our talk today, we're going to talk a lot about community-based experiences and work and getting out into the community. And that's really our part in being able to educate the community on individuals with autism and how best they work and how best to work with them also. The respondents also gave their opinion on what we need to do in order to help individuals with autism to find and keep a job. And luckily, this is what we just shared with you. We have ideas and we have answers to try to help come up with solutions to these problems. The one other thing that they added that they didn't necessarily add in the first open-ended answer question was the addition of transportation. And transportation is definitely a concern for individuals with finding work and keeping work across the country. And I've heard people from many different states saying that there's issues, and it's always different depending on the area. So that will be something that we need to think about individually and geographically about how to solve that problem. But the moral of the story here is that we need to create opportunities for students at all ages. We need to start thinking about work and exposing them to work before we get to the IEP transition planning phase. Thinking about work when they're children and observing their skills as young children all the way through their teen years and even into adulthood. We need to create opportunities for in-school and out in the community experiences as well. In school, we can think about pre-vocational activities around the building, thinking about tasks such as mail delivery or scanning, copying, shredding, laminating, trash pickup. The list could go on and on of things that we can do in school or even at home. In the community, the possibilities really are endless. With the relationships that you create with employer partners, and especially if they're really good relationships, they will keep continuing to help you find additional opportunities and to help your learners succeed. In our transition programs for students with autism between the ages of 16 to 21, I've seen individuals come into our program at the age of 18 and will tell me, I don't think I want to work. I don't know what I want to do or even what I'm good at, because they're 18 and they graduated from their academic program, but did not have any vocational experiences. And by the time this individual graduated from our program, she said, I really love this work site. It was really hard to get her out of that work site when we went, and that she felt she was really good at the tasks there. And she was actually hired for the job when she graduated. So having a drastic difference in her attitude and her confidence between those 2 years that she was with us was really helpful, because we exposed her to the opportunities and we gave her the opportunity in the community to see what her career could be like if she went in that direction. So opportunity and exposure is definitely key. So to continue to address our plan for helping individuals succeed and preparing for the workforce, Stephanie and I broke this presentation up into 3 areas. We're going to talk about some skill assessments, identifying various skills to develop for the individual seeking employment, as well as creating experiences. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie so she can talk to you now about skill assessment.
Thank you, Katrina. So let's plan to find the right job placement. We can begin by using the resources we have at hand, such as getting your input as family members, caregivers, and teachers. We can also collect information by just observing the learner in their natural environment, either at home or at school and in their community setting. We can channel in deeper by using curriculum books and assessments to support us into the right direction. With the various resources above, you can get a better understanding of the learner's skill level, as well as their likes and dislikes, to help them gain the skills and confidence they need for the right job placement. So let's focus on the last 2 assessments that are bolded. The Assessment of Functional Living Skills, also known as AFLS, is a criterion reference skills assessment tool. tracking system, and curriculum guide for teaching learners with developmental disabilities the essential skills they need in order to achieve the most independent outcomes. The AFLS assesses 6 different areas: functional living, school, home, community, independent living, and vocational skills. This assessment uses a 2 to 4 point rating scale. Although the AFLS may be lengthy to complete, it's a thorough assessment to identify functional skills, and there is no specialization needed for training required to implement this. Here's a sample from the AFLS Vocational Skills Protocol. As you see at the top, you have task, score, task name, objective, question, examples, and criteria. This sample asks if the learner can demonstrate soft skills during an interview. We then ask ourselves, does the learner demonstrate a variety of soft skills during mock interview so the appearance and interactions are relaxed and confident? To the right of the question, it gives you examples of different types of soft skills that are expected during the interview, such as a handshake, greeting the interviewer with appropriate eye contact, possibly with a smile, engaging in a small talk, and ending with the interview by saying, "Thank you." After we ask ourselves and process the question, we then look at the criteria to score it. 0 for not at all, 1 for knowing that the learner can appropriately greet and shakes hands with interviewer, or 2 for knowing that the learner is confident and relaxed when using a variety of soft skills when answering questions and participating in the interview. Once we've completed the assessment piece of the AFLS, a grid is completed to show the skills and areas needed for growth, or to be taught in each category. These areas are fully shaded in blue. So the area shaded in blue means the learner has mastered target. The areas shaded in red, or that are fully, I'm sorry, not red, but fully white, means the learner has either not been exposed to the skill or has not been able to perform the skill independently. So these target areas are the ones that we want to focus on to guide the skill we teach. National Suffix Service for Autism Transition Vocational Skill Assessment is another assessment we can use. It has 10 different areas where we can assess. So it has basic skills, self-help, language and communication, daily living, time concepts and money management, safety, transportation and sexual awareness, leisure and reinforcement, community integration, behavior, and vocational skills. In comparison to the AFLS, this assessment is shorter, but it's also less comprehensive and more vague. But the cool part is it's free. AFLS varies in cost from purchasing the guide itself in addition to each protocol. There is also an option to purchase the bundle of all 6 protocols, including the guide. You can surely have the option of starting with the NASA Suffix Service Assessment and then move on to the AFLS if more ideas are needed. This assessment here has a 5-point rating scale. So from absent to fully dependent, unsatisfactory to barely independent, satisfactory to fairly independent, good to mostly independent, and excellent to fully independent. Some questions that you'll be able to see on the assessment, and you ask yourself, can the learner use a tissue when necessary? Or can the learner pay for basic purchases at the store? At Alpine, we have also created assessments too. So Alpine has created 2 assessments to help guide the process to finding the right match for employment for our learners. In the employee characteristic assessment, we look at skills and the needs of the learner. The site assessment to the right looks at requirements of specific work sites to see if it can matches with the employee characteristic assessment. We use these at Alpine for assessing not only future job replacements, but community-based work experiences as well. These are free and are located on our website under the Resources tab. If you complete any of these assessments, you are off to a great start. If you happen to have a learner with limited skills, you will then begin by narrowing down your findings, identifying their deficits, and then you can begin to translate those target skills into goals. We can start by observing the learner in their environment and lifestyle. Then we ask ourselves these kind of questions. How often does our learner use these target skills? What is the likelihood that these skills will generalize and maintain? Are these prerequisite skills required to meet our learners' goals? What opportunities are there for employment? Even we can ask, how will they spend their leisure time? When we are envisioning for future job placement, we have to keep in mind the learner's strengths, interests, and preferences too. Since we have now completed a skill assessment and have identified some potential goals, let's talk about some specific skills we may end up teaching. So here's a list of skills that we'll be discussing today. When teaching for vocational skills, we need to start at the beginning. So let's take a step back and think. Before a learner can monitor their personal appearance, they will need to know how to arrange their clothing. Before a learner can keep appointments and read time, they will need to be able to identify numbers. Before a learner can introduce themselves while shaking one's hand, they need to be able to make and maintain eye contact. Before a learner can access transportation, they need to be able to ride a car appropriately. These are just a handful of examples that show us that skills taught in from the home or in the classroom setting really can set the foundation for more complex vocational skills. It's not uncommon to teach individuals with autism who engage in challenging behavior. Some behavior that we may observe are escape, aggression, or seeking attention. We have to be mindful that these type of behaviors can be a response to tasks that the learner are asked to perform, whether it could be too difficult, too easy, and maybe not even motivating enough. The behaviors that our learners may engage in may be stigmatizing and tend to take away time from the opportunity to learn a new job skill. One way to combat these behaviors before they start is to reinforce the learner's preferences, such as offering choices and finding meaningful tasks. Reducing challenging behavior can reduce social stigma in the community. Then that gives them the opportunity to naturally open up opportunities for job placement experiences. Reducing challenging behavior can also increase on-task behavior, which may also afford opportunities for success in the workforce. However, we do recognize that for some individuals, the goal is to reduce the rate and levels of behavior. We then will try our best to find the right environmental match for employment in the future. For example, for someone who has aversions to certain sounds or noises, we will look and try our best to find a quieter environment for them to work in. For more information about strategies in addressing and reducing challenging behavior, Dr. Bridget Taylor will be presenting on this very topic next week on April 29th at 12 p.m. We advise that you take the time to register for this webinar. I guarantee that her presentation is going to be phenomenal. So let's talk about self-care. Self-care skills are important for a variety of reasons. Obviously, taking care of your own health is important, but observing self-care and proper hygiene in the workplace will also provide additional opportunities for the employee. When we think of self-care, we think of monitoring our own physical appearance. This may also include taking prescribed medication, eating a healthy diet, exercising, and of course, hygiene. Hygiene can be as simple as grooming and bathing on a regular basis, living or working in a clean space, and also wearing clean clothes every day. Helping your learner learn these self-care skills is an important step towards independence and increasing one's self-esteem. It's always great to have a good first impression, but it's even better when the impression is long-lasting. Here are some relevant self-care skills that we can teach our learners. Dressing for the appropriate weather and season. For example, wearing a winter coat in the summer is not advised. You will most likely overheat. Taking a shower, washing your hair, brushing your teeth, applying deodorant, all combined are important. Let's be honest, body odor is not a pleasant smell, and it can be a distraction when trying to focus on the job's task at hand. It may also make you, yourself, and others around you feel uncomfortable. Eating with utensils, chewing with your mouth closed at an appropriate pace is also a skill that presents mealtime etiquette. Washing hands after using the bathroom, major, major, major. This will decrease contamination on other surfaces throughout the workplace. Coughing, sneezing into your elbow, or should I say mask, can help slow the spread of germs. This pandemic has reinforced majority of our behaviors on this part. And of course, getting an adequate amount of sleep to prepare for the next day. This can help decrease stress, improve your mood throughout the entire day. We can teach our learners these self-care skills by developing a routine. Let's take applying deodorant as an example. One way that we can break down the skill is presented in a schedule. We can create a short checklist. Depending on the learner and their skill level, we can include series of words, pictures, auditory cues, videos that represent steps in a sequence. By doing that, we could then place the morning or bedtime routine on a wall or an electronic device in a safe place where the learner can see it often. Then we can teach our learner to check off the steps as he or she completes them. This will help reinforce their independent responses. We can start off by modeling the behavior we want to see, then provide physical guidance to ensure effortless performance and fade prompts systematically and as quickly as possible. Teaching time management is one very important skill to prepare for the workplace. We understand that every employer would love, love, love to see an employee who comes to work on time and who is reliable and productive once they clock in. Many learners diagnosed with autism may need accommodation for time management in the workplace. Some may have a difficult time tracking and managing time throughout the day. Others may work on a loose schedule and are unaware of the time and how long it may take to accomplish a task. We also may know some individuals who are dependent on their schedules, sometimes following the schedule from the exact minute to minute. Here are some options that can help increase time management skills, such as reminders, Google Calendar, Microsoft To Do, and also your clock alarm and note app on your electronic device. You can download these apps for free on your App Store or Play Store. Overall, we want to make sure that we are teaching time management skills. We first teach it in their natural work environment. This will help to reduce stigma in the workplace. In order for us to generalize time management skills, we may start teaching using a laminated list or a picture schedule or a physical calendar. And by doing that, then we can transfer the same schedule to a phone or tablet device or even a smartwatch. I'm going to share some examples of schedules we may use for some learners to perform a vocational task at home or school. For this particular example that you see, the learner would move the penny down from the list as they complete each step. As you see, this one has pictures along with written instructions. So if we were to transfer this schedule to electronic device, we will keep the words and the pictures, but we won't be moving a physical penny down anymore. We'll most likely touch the screen to check mark a box next to the task, or depending on the app we use, once you tap the task on the screen, it may draw a line to cross it off for you. What is awesome about a text or a photographic schedule is that you can supplement or replace the text and pictures when needed. Here's another photographic schedule that was created to fit in your pocket. The benefit with a pocket-sized schedule is the accessibility. How more convenient would it be to have your schedule right by your side, having the opportunity to take it out and put it away when engaging in a task at work? Electronic schedules are a big hit. You have the option of downloading various apps on your phone or tablet. A popular app used in classrooms is Patello. Apps like Patello, you can include text, photos, videos, and audio prompts to help create independence. The only downside to having a schedule on your phone or tablet is the fact that it's not appropriate for all work settings, such as working around liquids. Some other schedules can be recorded and saved on your device. You would then have the opportunity to play back, repeat your schedule in case you have missed a step. You can attach a checklist to the materials you are using. This will allow you to not have to carry too many things when completing your job task. So as you can see, there are so many different ways that you can create a schedule for your learner. You would then pick a schedule that works best for their skill level. If it seems challenging for them, try a different way. The goal is to find the best schedule that fits the learner and their job placement, so they can become more independent and successful in their new position. So as you know, social interaction is one of the deficits we see as part of the autism diagnosis. However, these are important skills to learn for each individual in their personal and professional life. Working on social skills is important as it helps with each of these areas that you see on the screen. First impressions, building relationships on the job and in life overall, perceived competence, professionalism, and creating opportunity. There are a number of social skills that relate to the workplace. The list of important social skills in the workplace can go on and on, but these are just a few reasons why we should address this area in preparation for work. Not only will it help someone become more social with their colleagues, it could also help them getting that job. Think about interviewing and the first impressions that we want to be long-lasting. While someone's abilities in the social skill area should not always be representative of their hands, work, and capability, but truthfully, it is. Greeting others and small talk all contribute to professionalism as well, to long-lasting impressions. The more present someone is socially may create more employment opportunities due to their presence.
In another study about job-related social skills by Grob and colleagues, they taught job-related social skills specifically. They taught skills such as apologizing, asking for help with materials, asking for clear feedback, and giving confirming statements. There are ways that we can create opportunities to teach these skills in any environment that the learner is in. For example, apologizing. We might teach someone to say, "My mistake," or "I'm sorry," or "sorry about that." So we could shape their responses to making a mistake by creating that environment for them in school or at home where a mistake was made, and then prompt them to say, "My mistake," or "sorry about that." For asking for help with materials, we can give materials, but not all materials, that would then prompt the learner to ask for help. They could say, "I need more paper. Can you help me find it?" Or I need a pencil." Leave something out and create the opportunity for them to ask for help. When asking for clear feedback, you can give the learner something to do, but not give them all of the specifics. So that it wouldn't be as easy for them to complete the task. That would then prompt them to ask you what to fix. So I need you to fix this, but not tell them how. Confirming statements. So after giving an instruction, the learner could then respond with a statement showing that they understand what needs to be done. So if you ask somebody to shred this pile of paper, consider it done, or "you got it." Teaching them specific responses when they're asked to do something. Just little small talk that helps add and go a long way. Just touching briefly on transportation. It's never too early to start thinking about how someone will get to work once they have that job. And it could be something as early as riding in the car. Tolerating keeping the seatbelt on in the car or riding safely in the vehicle. Could be taking public transportation and getting used to the many sensory input that are around you in terms of the sights and the smells and the number of people that are around you. This all depends on your geographic area as to what would be available. Some other skills that would be good to teach early on would be reading a map or bus or train schedule, especially if that's something that you would take often. You could also teach to use a GPS app, such as Google Maps or Waze, and so that they would know how to put in their address of where they're going. And this actually would help with a number of areas, not just getting to work, but going to the store or going to a neighbor's house that's a little bit further away. I guess they wouldn't really be a neighbor, but somebody who lives a little bit further away that they would need to navigate to. Something such as identifying a paratransit vehicle. In New Jersey, we have the Access Link van here on the screen, and be able to identify that this is the van that they get in to go to work. And they might need to generalize that because there's not just this Access Link van, but there could be some other cars that come by, but recognizing the logo and that this is the vehicle that you get in to go to work. Preparing for or taking a driver's exam could also be a possibility for some individuals who are looking for employment. We have had some individuals in our transition programs who are preparing for their driver's exam and getting that study guide to take the test or other online study options. They've been excited to do them, but they've also been challenging and taken a little bit longer for some. So even thinking about whether driving would be a possibility for the individual learner that you're working with, and what supports in your area would be there to help them achieve that goal. So we've talked about skill assessment. We've identified some skills to develop. And now we want to talk about creating experiences. And when we're thinking about work tasks and skills, we need to be thinking about a few different areas. So Stephanie's mentioned some of the soft skills, but what we would like to talk about next is some of the hard skills and how we can develop those. Hard skills would be skills that are related to the field of employment that they would be going into. So these could be specific skills such as office skills or janitorial skills. Soft skills, as Stephanie was mentioning, are your social skills. So thinking about greeting and small talk, requesting assistance on the job. And then our related skills that would come along with learning the specific skills for the field of employment that you're going into. And those would be increasing endurance, completing tasks independently, and potentially clocking in and out from work. In our classroom, we have a fingerprint scanner, which we're not using right now, but when we can do that again, they're learning multiple ways to clock in and out, using a paper timesheet to write their times in and out and tally their time. Using a fingerprint scanner to check in and out, and in some clocking in and out on the computer as well. Here's a list of some pre-vocational tasks and some ideas for targets to teach. These are some of the programs that we have in our school programs and in our adult programs to teach different pre-vocational tasks to further develop skills. There are many targets here for teaching hard skills, but some skills are both hard and soft as well. So teaching hard skills such as cleaning, office work, stocking, inventory, and even identifying computer hardware. For some of our learners, they're also learning how to code and computer programming. Those would all be specific hard skills that they would be working on to achieve a specific employment goal. And some of these targets listed here, as I mentioned, are both hard and soft skills. Some skills such as using Zoom, we're staying with the times here, could be hard and soft skills because you have to know how to use Zoom to maybe share a screen or record a presentation, to spotlight a video. All of those different aspects of actually using Zoom could be important in somebody's job, especially during this time. But on the other side, the soft skill of being able to present something to a colleague or converse with colleagues over Zoom. You could also think about composing an email as being both hard and soft skill, and that you have to actually know how to use the email, how to send that email, but also also thinking about, maybe they've been assigned a task to write a memo and send it out in an email. Those are very specific skills related to an office job. But then the content in that email would also be a soft skill. So if you're writing to your supervisor to ask for time off, you need to know how to compose an email. And students in our transition programs are learning how to compose an email to request time off, or that they're calling out sick, or just requesting their schedule also, if their schedule changes from week to week. These skills can be practiced anywhere. You can be practicing them at home. If you have bills that need to be shredded, you can practice shredding all the time. It can be practiced at school or in the community. And it's never too early to start thinking about these skills and how you can further develop them with the individual that you're working with. I know in my home, my 19-month-old knows where to put recycles. If I tell him that's recycle, he puts in the recycle bin and not the garbage. That could be a job task of his in the future. My 6-year-old cleans the table after dinner, and she's also wiping doorknobs and light switches. Again, staying with the times, but I'm always preparing them for what kinds of work tasks they can have in the future. And as your learner gets older, it's be important to create these community-based work experiences. And arranging for these experiences is important because it can address a number of skills that we wouldn't necessarily be able to address in a school or home environment. Having access to the community and other people involved in our lives definitely creates more opportunity for generalization of skills and developing additional skills. It helps them to learn to keep appointments. So arriving on time or completing tasks in an order by a deadline requested by their employer. It helps increasing their endurance during work tasks. I've seen many learners, whether it's our adult program or our transition or even our school programs, go in and start off with work that's either a 30-minute shift up to 3 hours. Moving that time, increasing it over time would be important in order for them to develop additional skills, but also gives them more opportunities in their careers. Completing tasks without the presence of adult is always important. On-task behavior is always valued by an employer. Our employers always want us to be working and being busy and productive. Being able to do this independently would be an important skill to teach. And of course, you're experiencing a variety of different work tasks and learning specific skills. If you're being exposed to one work site, that's great, but expose them to many. We definitely have students come in with very specific interests, but we ask them, let's just try this out. And in the case earlier with the student that didn't know what they wanted to do when they first came to us, she did learn what she wanted to do, and she didn't want to do that specific work site at first. So you will develop preferences for types of work. In another study in 2017, it was a very popular year for doing some research, they found that 90% of individuals who had work during their high school years were able to find employment soon after they graduated from high school. Of their peers who did not have work during their high school years and have other experiences to add to their resume, only 40% of them were able to find work soon after high school. And we obviously want the learners that we support to be in that 90%. So getting those community work experiences and adding to their resume is very important. So in thinking about resumes, after we've developed skills, we've had different experiences, there are a few different ways that we can compose a resume. We have our traditional resumes and we have visual resumes. And under traditional resumes, we have two different types. The chronological resume, which is the one that most of us use, that is listed in chronological order by date of experience and details each experience, would be the most common. And some employers will require this. And there's also a skills-based resume. So for somebody who is starting out new in the field or has had limited experiences, this would be a focus more on a resume that has skills rather than dates of employment and various types of employment. So this could have many more opportunities for the learners that we're supporting. And then there are two different types of visual resumes. The visual resume that you could use a PowerPoint and show pictures of the individual working and share their information of those different sites that they worked at in that way. You could also use a video resume, which I'll give you an example of in the next slide, where you use a video to introduce a candidate and shows that worker in action. So I'm going to reshare this. I just want to say that this student's full name is in the video. The family said that this was okay, but it's only in there because this would be shared with an employer and should be confidential.
Hi, my name is Brandon Ehrlich, and I live in Norwood, New Jersey. I am a hard worker and enjoy helping others. In my program at Alpine Learning Group, I participate in many internships. Working is my favorite part of the day. I am an intern at Ramsey Auto Group, where I organize service invoices. I enjoy learning from my coworkers there. At AMC, I was hired as an usher. I enjoy keeping the theaters and lobby neat, refilling condiments, and greeting guests. At ShopRite, I was hired as an associate. I am starting there with bagging groceries and keeping the store clean. I am looking for a job where I can use my skills in organization and cleaning to contribute to a team. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time.
So as you can see there, he did the voiceover for his own video and we helped him to put it together. And this definitely does make a lasting impression for an employer. Talking about interviewing once we get there, interviewing for anybody is a stressful experience. But coupled with communication difficulties for individuals with autism, it can make the process really challenging. We found there was limited research on best practices for teaching interview skills, so we decided to conduct our own research in this area. And we were able to publish this last spring. The skills that we taught were answering questions, asking questions, and displaying appropriate body language. We felt these were 3 important skills to be able to get through an interview, and we used behavioral skills training to do this. Behavioral skills training has 4 phases in the model, and the first part is giving an instruction of what the task is that the person should be performing, what the skill they're learning, modeling that behavior for them. So you would be the model to show them how to perform that skill, giving them a chance to rehearse that skill, and while they're rehearsing, giving them feedback on their performance. And you would continue to rehearse and practice that skill until they were able to perform the skill to mastery. So what that would look like, for example, answering questions, the rule or instruction that we would give when answering an interviewer's question, we had 10 of the most common interview questions that we taught the individuals in this area. And we were teaching them how to answer each one separately. So the rule we would give was when answering an interviewer's question, we answer their question directly, then provide some additional information. We would then model. So for example, saying, "Why do you want to work here?" Myself and another staff member would model for the student, "Why do you want to work here?" of the interviewer asking the question. And the other one of us answering, "Well, I've always wanted to work at a movie theater. I know a lot about movies and I want to help your customers." So there's a direct answer that they've always wanted to work at a movie theater, but they gave some additional information. We would then give them the opportunity to practice with us answering that exact question and continue to give them feedback until they can answer the question in the way that would work best for them. Some other important skills that could be taught in an interview that we didn't necessarily focus on in the study would be greeting a receptionist or employee upon arrival, sitting and waiting for the interviewer, as well as greeting the interviewer once they are there. And I put this mixed picture here of some individuals in a mask doing an elbow touch rather than a handshake, because if we're going for an interview right now, those would be the things that we would need to teach, not necessarily elbow touch, but that we are not shaking hands during this time and being able to differentiate that. Some other interview skill adaptations that we have taught is presenting a visual resume or playing a video resume. So in a visual resume where you'd have a PowerPoint presentation, the individual could flip through a presentation binder and share their information with the interviewer, or they could simply press play on an iPad to show off their video resume to the employer to help them get a better idea of who they are as an employee. Now, I've seen both of these situations lay out in an interview where you're sharing a regular resume and a visual resume. And, my times with creating employment opportunities for people sitting in a room with other people presenting opportunities and potential candidates, it was always the person with the visual resume that got the job because it was more unique and it showed off their skills better. Some resources for job support once we get to adult services. There are two different agencies. There's your state VR, which is Vocational Rehabilitation. They offer job training, job seeking supports, and job coaching. That would be up to 90 days once they get the job, and they would partner with a provider agency to provide these services. They also provide education resources and support. So if somebody is looking to go to college or trade school, they would provide some financial supports and resources to help the individual do that. In your state DDD, Department of Developmental Disabilities agency, could be the the lifetime supports for the individual. And it's not just employment. While they would do employment supports in terms of finding a job, job coaching, and other supports that they would need, they also provide residential, recreational, and transportation supports as well. And there's no limit on DDD services. As long as they want the support, they can have that. Some additional resources we thought might be helpful to you, and we're going to try to get these out in some handouts to you. There's Autism Speaks as a transition toolkit, as well as an employment toolkit that will walk you through the whole process of transitioning and finding employment. We also have a supported employment and volunteerism training manual that's also on our website. The Virginia Commonwealth University Community-Based Skills Assessment has also been helpful to us in transition planning. The Job Accommodation Network talks about all the different accommodations and resources that individuals with disabilities can utilize as they're looking for work. And Hire Autism is another site that will help job seekers with autism to find employment, but they also have a mentoring component of their site where someone who volunteers to be a mentor can help someone walk through their employment seeking process. So that's it for our presentation. We want to turn it over to you if you have any questions for us.
That was terrific. Thank you, Katrina, and thank you, Stephanie. We have a few minutes for questions. If anybody would like to chat a question into the chat feature. This will be recorded and posted on YouTube on Alpine's channel. If anybody forward it, please, to anybody who might be interested in the presentation. Any questions? Just a lot of very positive comments. What about non-vocal individuals? How best to help them with interviewing?
I think that the visual resumes and the video resumes I've seen be very helpful. And I think it's definitely the advocacy on our part to help get the individual into that interview. But if you want to help them during an interview, if they're part of the process, teaching to flip through the pages on that video, the visual resume, or the visual resume has definitely been helpful to me in the past. Pictures and videos really do go a long way, and the relationship built with the employer.
I also think that you could very easily program somebody's augmentative communication system to communicate answers to questions. I think that you could narrate the video for the person, but show the visual representation of them engaged in the work task on the video. Could be that they would describe the photo resume along with their augmentative communication system. So relying on the communication system they know best. And if they sign, having someone who can interpret the signs.
Definitely.
And then of course there's questions around how to find a sympathetic employer and internship.
Yeah, I think that's all about the relationships that we build. And unfortunately, sometimes it's not the right match in some places, and we look elsewhere. But I've also met employers when I have met with them that had no idea, and maybe their language wasn't the most, PC language, but as we've gotten to know them, they definitely were helpful. Parents specifically.
Yeah, I think that making connections in one's town, I think where you live, sometimes making relationships with the business owners that you frequent often can be an into some of the some potential job opportunities or internship opportunities. So your own dentist, your own doctor, your attorney that you go to, their office, place of business. So really getting creative about thinking about the places you access already and whether those places can be potential opportunities. Somebody asked about local job coaches that would be available. Typically, those are provided through the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, correct, Katrina?
Yes, usually they connect you through the agencies that they work with.
So if depending on what state they're in, they would contact their own state of vocational rehabilitation agency, correct?
Yes. Yeah, there are certain agencies that are considered vendors that they would connect them to and who would be available.
So somebody's asking, which I think is an interesting question, about working on group skills like shredding, things that they can do in a group. So working on skills such as shredding, any advice about choosing skills to teach in a group to make our learners more employable. For example, there are less job opportunities for just shredding, but someone who can shred, collate, stuff envelopes, etc. So I guess what they're asking is what are some skills that you can work on in group that might have implications for employment?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the tasks that you mentioned are definitely good skills to work on. I think we also have some groups working together with some general maintenance tasks like cleaning, working as part of a team to clean a designated area. Trying to think of what else, or even outdoor maintenance tasks can be worked on together as a group as well.
We published a study which we can include we'll include a link to some of the resources when we post the video, but we published a study teaching individuals with autism to follow what are called cooperative schedules. So they're completing one task, but they're doing it together. And we demonstrated that we could teach 2 people to perform one task together using a schedule. And you could just as easily train 3 people to perform that same task using schedules where they're taught to do the next item on the list that hasn't been done by the person because it's not crossed out. So we'll include a link to that particular study. It's challenging because in most adult programs, you don't have the one-to-one that you have in the school program. And so it makes it difficult to teach some of these skills in a one-on-one individualized format. So I appreciate the question because it's often hard to teach, to have that level of individualization in the adult programming world because we don't have those ratios. And so I think it's a good question, and it would be, I think important for the field to begin to think about, like, what are the tasks that can be performed in a group, And, you know, some of the assembly line tasks that are done in warehouses where they're working, you know, on a task that requires multiple parts. So a team is working on the production of one particular item that they're putting together, but they're each taking different parts of that task. Somebody else asked about skills to work on at a young age in the community or school. So when you said it's important to work on skills from a very young age, can you elaborate on maybe some of those skills early on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of those skills, exposing to chores, definitely chores at home are definitely helpful skills to be exposed to. Observing other people working as well is helpful, just to see what they're doing. But even, you know, following a list or an activity schedule, so that they're learning how to follow a sequence of steps would be helpful in them then being able to learn a multitude of tasks as well. So thinking about even the tasks that you do around home, whether it's, you know, cleaning at home, shredding at home, filing some papers, taking out the trash. I mean, the chores that you would regularly do at home would have some responsibility, would then also be translatable to, you know, the school environment, a work environment as well. Typing is also a good skill that can translate to many different areas that you can start working on at a young age.
And some of I would think of are global skills. So for example, just having endurance to start something and stick with it for a long enough period of time without walking away, without engaging in some interfering behavior. So really staying on task for longer periods of time. That's a fun foundational skill that you can teach from a very young age. So when we teach our learners to follow activity schedules, they're staying on task for longer periods of time. Starting something and finishing something is a fundamental task to work. And some of those early social behaviors, being able to greet somebody. So there's lots of foundational skills that will set the occasion for them to acquire other skills in these other environments. So, you know, thinking about it more broadly as some prerequisite type skills that you're learning along the way, as opposed to very specific skills like, you know, taking out the garbage or something like that, right? So, but can they learn to stay on task? Can they follow activity schedules? Can they learn some of those early social skills? Can they seek assistance when something's broken? Do they know when a supply needs to be replenished? And those are all things that can be worked on from a young age. Any other questions? I just want to be sensitive to people's time. We're a little over 1 o'clock. I just want to thank everybody. Here's some Katrina's and Stephanie's email. Feel free to reach out to them with any questions.